When I found that pregnancy test in her purse, I swear my heart stopped. Not because I didn't believe she could be pregnant, but because she'd already told us she was. That morning felt like any other in my quiet Maplewood home. The air was thick with the smell of hazelnut coffee and the faint sound of country radio playing from the kitchen counter. Sunlight peeked through the lace curtains, scattering soft patterns across the oak table where my son and his wife had just eaten breakfast. They'd left early Michael off to the auto shop where he worked as a mechanic, and Emily to her job at the dental clinic across town. I stayed behind, humming as I cleared the table, happy to have them visit for the weekend. That's when I saw Emily's purse sitting open on one of the dining chairs. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it. I don't go through people's things. I was raised better than that. But the zipper was undone, and right there peeking out from under a Target receipt was a small white stick. At first, I thought it was a thermometer. But then I saw those two faint pink lines, and my body went cold, because just 2 weeks earlier, Emily had told me she was pregnant. She'd cried tears of joy sitting right there at my kitchen counter, hands shaking as she told me I was going to be a grandmother. We'd even toasted with sweet tea. So why was there a new test? I stood there frozen, the ticking of the wall clock the only sound in the room. I could feel my pulse in my throat. My hands trembled as I carefully slid the test back into her purse and zipped it up. Nothing made sense, unless she'd taken another test to be sure, or unless she was hiding something. That last thought had hit me like a weight I didn't want to carry. I tried to push it away, telling myself it was just nerves. But deep down, something dark started whispering. Linda, something isn't right here. Before all this, before the secrets and the tension, life had been peaceful, simple. I'd lived in Maplewood my whole life, a small Tennessee town where everyone waves when they pass you on the road and where gossip spreads faster than wildfire. I'd retired from my job at the elementary school last spring, finally able to spend my mornings gardening and my evenings on the porch, with a glass of sweet tea and the cicadas singing in the background. My son Michael was my pride and joy, my only child. His daddy passed when he was 17, and I watched that boy grow up overnight. He worked hard, never complained, and always made sure I had what I needed. So when he told me one day, "Mom, I met someone," my heart just swelled. Her name was Emily. She was sweet, polite, soft-spoken, the kind of girl who called me Mrs. Harper until I told her to stop. She was a dental hygienist, raised right here in Tennessee too, and the moment I met her I thought, Lord, maybe this is the one. When Michael brought her over for Sunday dinner, she helped set the table, complimented my meatloaf, and insisted on doing the dishes afterward. She felt like family almost instantly. A year later, they got married in a small church just outside town. I remember standing in the front pew, watching my son's eyes fill with tears as he said his vows, and I thought to myself, he's found his person. After the wedding, they rented a little 2-bedroom house just 15 minutes away from me, close enough for dinner visits, but far enough that they had their own space. For a while, things were perfect. Emily would stop by on Saturdays with muffins or flowers. We'd sit on the porch, talk about work, and sometimes about babies. She'd tell me, "Michael's going to be such a good dad." And I'd laugh and say, "He learned from the best." But around their first anniversary, something shifted. Emily became harder to reach distant. She stopped coming by as often. When she did, her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. She'd glance at her phone mid-conversation, as if waiting for someone to text her. Michael brushed it off, said she was stressed from work, but I could feel it, a wall slowly building between them. Then, one Sunday afternoon, she came to my house alone. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking. Before I could even ask what was wrong, she said, "Linda, I'm pregnant." I felt my breath catch in my chest. My heart leapt. I'd been waiting to hear those words for years. I jumped up, hugged her tight, tears streaming down my face. Michael had always dreamed of being a father. The thought of holding a little grandbaby had felt like joy after so much loss. But as I held her, something inside me noticed she wasn't hugging me back. Later that evening, Michael came by, grinning like a boy on Christmas morning. "You heard the news, Mom?" he said, eyes shining. "I'm gonna be a dad." And of course I smiled, told him how proud I was. But deep down I couldn't shake it, that strange feeling, that silence in her hug. 2 weeks later came the test, the purse, the pink lines, and the uneasy feeling turned into something heavier, like the truth was trying to speak, but I wasn't ready to listen. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I watched how she avoided my eyes, how she changed her perfume something stronger, more floral, how she laughed less, how her phone was always face down. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, but that whisper in my mind, it just wouldn't quiet down. Then, one afternoon, Emily came by again to drop off a casserole dish she'd borrowed. It was raining outside, thunder rumbling softly in the distance. She looked distracted, nervous almost. While she was in the restroom, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to look, but the message preview flashed across the screen before I could turn away. Evan, I still can't believe you told him it's his. The air left my lungs. My knees went weak. When she came out, I could barely speak. I handed her the phone. She froze, eyes flicking to the screen for just a second before forcing a smile. Thanks again for the dish, she said quietly, slipping the phone into her purse. And then she walked out into the rain, calm, collected, like nothing had happened. But I knew. That night, I sat in the dim light of my living room, staring at their wedding photo on the wall, my son holding her like she was his world. And I whispered to myself, Lord, how do I tell my boy that the life he built is a lie? That night, I barely slept. The rain kept tapping against the windows, steady and slow, while I lay awake replaying that text message over and over in my mind. I still can't believe you told him it's his. I'd raised Michael to believe in people, to see the good in them. And now, sitting there in the quiet of my house, I felt something I hadn't felt since his father's funeral helplessness. The kind that sits in your bones and doesn't let go. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed to be sure before I said a word. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I went looking for answers. The next day, I drove to the little coffee shop near the clinic where Emily worked. Maplewood Brew small place with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu that still had last month's specials written on it. I sat by the window, pretending to scroll my phone while I watched the parking lot. At exactly 12:30, Emily came out with her jacket pulled tight around her. But she wasn't alone. A man was waiting by her car. Tall, dark hair, maybe early 30s. He wasn't her coworker. I knew most of the folks from the clinic. He smiled as she approached, and then he hugged her. Not just any hug, the kind where you forget the world for a second. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to look away, but my eyes were locked on them. He brushed her hair back, said something that made her laugh, then kissed her forehead before she got in the car. That image had burned into me like a scar. I went home, parked my car, and sat in the driveway for 10 minutes just trying to think. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight they hurt. Part of me wanted to storm over to their house and demand the truth. But another part, the mother part, kept whispering, don't break your son's heart unless you're absolutely sure. So I waited, watched, collected the pieces until I couldn't deny what they formed. 3 days later, Michael came by after work. He looked exhausted, grease still on his hands, a tired smile on his face. Emily's been feeling sick, he said. Morning sickness, I think. She's staying with her mom for a few days. Her mom? That was new. Emily's mother lived 2 towns over and barely visited. Did she say when she's coming back? I asked. He shrugged, poured himself a cup of coffee. Maybe this weekend. She said she just needs a little rest. I watched him, my sweet boy, so full of trust. He had no idea that the woman he loved might be lying to him every time she smiled. When he left, I sat alone at the table, tracing the rim of my mug, trying to find the right words, the right moment to tell him. But how do you tell your child something that will destroy him? I prayed on it that night. Lord, if I'm meant to speak, show me how. But if silence is safer for now, keep me quiet. That weekend, the answer came. Emily showed up again unannounced, as usual. She looked pale, almost fragile, but her eyes darted around nervously, like someone hiding a secret. Hey, Linda, she said softly. Do you have a minute? My stomach tightened. Of course, honey. Come in. She sat at the kitchen counter, the same spot where she'd once told me she was pregnant. I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. I wanted to apologize, she said suddenly. If I've seemed distant, I know you've probably noticed. Her voice trembled, and she kept fidgeting with her sleeve. I stayed quiet, waiting. I've been under a lot of stress lately, she continued. Work, the pregnancy. I didn't mean to worry anyone. I nodded slowly. Stress can do that. But you know, honesty eases a heavy heart. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down. But then, she smiled. You're right, she whispered. I'll try to be more open. And just like that, she stood up, said she needed to go. As she reached for her purse, something small fell out, a folded piece of paper. She froze, but I was quicker. I picked it up before she could. It was a printed email confirmation from Maplewood Women's Clinic. Appointment. Prenatal DNA paternity test. Date. Tomorrow. I looked up at her. Emily, I said quietly. Why are you getting a paternity test? Her face went white. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a second, her mask slipped fear, guilt, panic all flashing at once. "Linda, please," she whispered. "You can't tell Michael. Not yet." "Not yet?" My voice cracked. "Emily, he thinks he's going to be a father." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I was seeing someone before we got serious. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it had to be his. But then I wasn't sure." The room spun. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint rain outside, it all blurred into one awful silence. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself. "Who is he?" I asked. She looked down. "His name's Evan." The same name. The same text message. I took a deep breath, fighting the tears threatening to spill. "Does Michael know anything?" She shook her head. "No. And please, Linda, don't tell him. I'll figure it out after the test. If it's his, none of this will matter." Her words hung in the air like poison. None of this will matter. I stared at her, at the woman who had married my son and was now begging me to help her keep a secret that could destroy him. When she finally left, I sank to the floor. My chest hurt like someone was squeezing the life out of it. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, but I just sat there, whispering to myself, what kind of world have we come to, where truth feels like betrayal? That night, I didn't pray for guidance. I prayed for strength, because I knew what I had to do next and it would break us all. I spent that night walking circles in my living room, my heart pounding every time I thought of Michael's face, that easy smile, that quiet trust he had in people. He'd inherited that from his father, but I knew I couldn't keep this secret. Not one like this. Not when a baby's life and my son's heart were hanging in the balance. Still, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the TV off, staring into the dark, replaying every memory of Emily in my home, her laughter in my kitchen, her hands helping me decorate the Christmas tree, every kindness that now felt like a lie. By morning, I had made a decision I wouldn't tell Michael yet. Not until I had proof. I couldn't let emotions or assumptions do what facts should. But I also knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let Emily walk away from this pretending it was fine. The next day, I drove to Maplewood Women's Clinic. The rain had cleared, and the Tennessee sun was beating down hard, making the air heavy and sticky. I parked across the street and waited. I felt ridiculous, a 60-year-old woman sitting in her car, spying on her daughter-in-law. But my gut told me to stay. At 11:05, she arrived. Alone. Sunglasses on, hair pulled back. I watched her walk into that building like she was carrying 100 pounds of guilt. She stayed inside for almost an hour. When she came out, she looked hollow, like someone who'd just lost something important. She got in her car and sat there for a long minute before driving off. I wanted to believe she'd do the right thing. Tell Michael herself, come clean, face what she'd done. But that night, when Michael came over for dinner, he said something that told me she hadn't. "She's feeling better," he said, smiling. "The doctor said everything looks good with the baby." My stomach dropped, so she'd gone to the clinic, and then lied straight to his face. I felt my hand tighten around my fork. I wanted to say it right then, to blurt out, "She's lying to you, Michael." But when he looked up at me, those blue eyes so much like his father's, I couldn't do it. Not yet. I needed to find a way to make him see it for himself. Over the next few days, I prayed harder than I ever had before. For strength, for guidance, for a way to protect him without destroying him. And then, an opportunity came in the most ordinary way. Emily called me one afternoon, sounding chipper, like nothing had ever happened. "Linda, I was wondering if you could help me with something. We're thinking of having a little dinner next weekend, you know. Celebrate the pregnancy, invite a few friends." My voice stayed calm, but my heart raced. "That sounds nice, honey. Who's coming?" "Oh, just a few of Michael's coworkers, and a couple of my friends. Maybe Evan too, he's an old friend from before I met Michael." She said it so casually, like the name didn't mean anything, like I hadn't seen her hug that same man outside her clinic. I swallowed hard. "Evan? Haven't heard that name before." "Oh," she laughed lightly. "You probably wouldn't. He's just someone who's been helping me with errands lately." Helping her. That was it. That was the moment I decided if the truth wouldn't come out on its own, I'd help it along. The following Saturday, I arrived at their house with a peach cobbler and a calm I didn't really feel. I could hear the faint buzz of music inside, people laughing. Emily opened the door with that practiced smile. "Linda, you made it!" Her voice was all sugar, but I could see the panic in her eyes the moment she realized Evan was already there, standing near the kitchen with a drink in hand. Michael came over, wrapping me in a hug. "Glad you're here, Mom. It means a lot." I smiled back. "Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart." The evening started normally enough: small talk, laughter, food. But I couldn't stop watching Emily. Every time Evan spoke, her body stiffened. Every time Michael touched her shoulder, she flinched just a little. And that's when it happened, something small, but enough. Michael was talking to one of his friends when Emily walked over to the counter where Evan was standing. He leaned in close and said something I couldn't hear it. But whatever it was made her glance toward Michael nervously. Evan smiled, that same soft, knowing smile I'd seen in the parking lot. It was all I needed. I excused myself from the conversation, walked right up to them, and in a voice just loud enough for the room to hear, said, "Emily, would you mind telling me how you know this young man?" The room went quiet. Evan straightened up, looking caught. "Emily's was en red. He's just a friend, Linda." "A friend?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Funny. I could have sworn I saw the two of you outside the clinic last week, and that didn't look much like friendship." Michael's smile faded. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I turned to him slowly. "Son, I think you deserve to ask your wife that question." He looked from me to Emily, confusion clouding his face. "Em? What's going on?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Michael, please, not here." Evan took a step back, his expression tightening. "Maybe I should go." "No," Michael said sharply. "You stay right there." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes your chest hurt. Emily's lip trembled. "It's not what you think." Michael's voice cracked. "Then tell me what it is." She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know who the father is." The room gasped, quiet murmurs rippling through the guests. Michael just stood there, frozen. His face went pale, like all the blood had drained out of him. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "So you lied? All this time?" She started crying. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know what else to do." He turned away, running a hand through his hair, his breathing uneven. "Get out," he said softly. "Micah," I said, "get out." Evan looked like he wanted to say something, but one look from Michael made him stop. Emily grabbed her purse, sobbing as she hurried toward the door, and then she was gone. That night, the party ended in silence. Everyone left quietly, murmuring awkward apologies. I stayed behind, helping Michael clean up, though neither of us said much. When I finally spoke, it was gentle. "I'm sorry, baby." He just nodded, staring at the floor. "I should have seen it, Mom. I just didn't want to. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault. That love makes fools of all of us sometimes, but all I could do was pull him into my arms and let him cry. Because sometimes, even the truth feels cruel when it comes too late." The days that followed were like walking through fog. Michael barely spoke, and when he did, it was in short, distant sentences. I'd stop by his house each morning just to make sure he was eating something. Usually he wasn't. I'd find untouched plates on the counter, coffee gone cold, and the faint smell of Emily's perfume still clinging to the couch pillows. It was like she'd left fingerprints on the walls, on his heart, on everything. He never said it, but I could see it in his eyes. He still loved her. And that was the hardest part. About a week after the dinner, Michael finally came over to my house. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Clothes rumpled, voice low. He dropped into the same kitchen chair his father used to sit in. "She came by yesterday," he said. I froze mid-step. "Emily?" He nodded. "She wanted to talk. Said she's moving to Nashville for a while, staying with a friend." I sat down across from him, my stomach twisting. "What did she say?" He let out a bitter laugh. "That she's sorry. That she wishes things had gone differently. That she doesn't know who the father is, but she's keeping the baby anyway." For a second, neither of us said anything. I just reached across the table and took his hand. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, Mom," he whispered. "Angry? Heartbroken? Relieved?" "You don't have to decide that right now," I said softly. "Just breathe. Grieve if you need to, but don't let her mistake break you." He nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "It's just, I thought we had forever." I squeezed his hand. "Forever doesn't always look like we think it will, sweetheart. Sometimes it's just long enough to teach us what love shouldn't be." He didn't say anything after that. He just sat there quietly, staring out the window as the afternoon sun spilled across the table, dust motes floating like tiny ghosts between us. A month passed before I saw Emily again. It was a Sunday morning. Church had just let out, and I was talking with Pastor Bill when I saw her standing near the parking lot. She looked different. Her face was pale, her belly just starting to show. She walked over slowly, clutching her purse like it was the only thing holding her together. "Mrs. Carter," she said softly. "Emily." I tried to keep my tone even. "I wanted to say thank you," she said, eyes shining with tears, "for telling the truth, for making me face it. I hate what I did. I hurt Michael, and you, but I'm trying to make things right now. I studied her for a moment, searching for the same girl who'd once sat in my kitchen talking about baby names. But she wasn't there anymore. What stood in front of me was a woman who had fallen hard, and maybe, just maybe, was trying to climb back up. I don't hate you, Emily, I said quietly, but I hope you never forget what your lies cost. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I won't. And then she turned and walked away down the sidewalk, her hand resting gently on her stomach. That night, I told Michael I'd seen her. He just nodded. I figured she'd go to church. She's been trying to find some kind of redemption, I guess. He paused, then looked at me with tired eyes. Do you think people like her deserve forgiveness? I thought about that for a long moment before answering. Maybe, but forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's what lets you breathe again. He looked away, his voice quiet. Then I guess I'll try. Slowly, things began to shift. Michael threw himself into work, spending long hours at the auto shop, fixing cars until his hands were raw. He started jogging in the mornings again, the way he used to before the marriage. And sometimes, when I'd stop by, I'd find him laughing with old friends, real laughter. Not the broken kind. One evening, he showed up at my door with takeout. Thought I'd bring dinner for once, he said with a smile that almost reached his eyes. We ate on the porch, the cicadas buzzing in the warm Tennessee dusk. After a while, he looked at me and said, You know, Mom, I think I finally understand something. What's that? That love isn't about finding someone who never hurts you. It's about learning when to walk away from the ones who do. I smiled, feeling a lump in my throat. Your father would have been proud of you. He gave me a small, tired grin. I hope so. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail, no return address. Just my name written in soft, looping handwriting. Inside was a photo. A baby girl, wrapped in a pink blanket, eyes bright and curious. There was a note attached. Her name is Grace. I thought you should know she's healthy, and I'm doing better. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she never grows up and lies. Emily. I sat there at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at that tiny face. Something in me cracked open, not anger, not sadness, just peace. Because, for all the heartbreak, for all the betrayal, something good had still found its way into the world. Maybe that was the Grace Emily was talking about. That evening, I showed the photo to Michael. He looked at it quietly for a long moment, then smiled faintly. She's beautiful, he said. She is. He took a deep breath, then handed it back to me. Maybe someday I'll meet her. Not today, but someday. I nodded. You'll know when you're ready. And for the first time in months, I saw a calm settle over him, the kind that only comes after a storm has passed. That night, after he left, I sat on the porch watching the stars, the photo still in my hand. I thought about how fragile truth is, how easily love can be twisted, and how healing never happens all at once. But I also thought about grace, the way it shows up when you least expect it. In the laughter that returns after heartbreak. In the forgiveness you didn't think you had. In a baby's innocent eyes that carry no guilt, only promise. And I realized something I hadn't understood before. Sometimes the worst kind of betrayal still leads you back to the best kind of peace.